What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for a brand new episode here in our MC205 here on Ben Bills with Joe. We are back at it today, guys, and this is a big deal because today we get to go ahead and paint on our camouflage, and that's going to be interesting. Now, for our paint, I'll be using Vallejo RLM 79 for our desert yellow, RLM 80 for our smoke rings, and pale blue or RLM 78 for the undersurface of the wings and tailplane. Aside from white for the tailband, that's all the colors we need. Pretty much we're good to go. However, we do have to contend with painting on those smoke rings, and that is not necessarily going to be a simple matter. Now, thanks to my subscribers, I've had a ton of great ideas, and I'm going to go ahead and combine a couple of key points, and we've decided to make my own masks based on the Edward decal sheet and cut out with my Cricut cutter here on a large piece of Tamiya tape. Now, this is going to be kind of interesting to see how this works out, but as you can see, hopefully, it's kind of hard to tell, but these are individually cut out smoke rings, and I'll just pull one up right like this. You can kind of get an idea that this can be applied to the model to act as masks. Aside from just kind of learning how to use my Cricut cutter, so unfortunately I did cut through a couple of areas here on the backing, but I think otherwise this should work perfectly fine, and we can just apply those all over the model. Of course, that means I have to come in and paint everything with RLM 80 first, but that should be okay. And once that's dry, I can just pick an assortment of our smoke rings, place them randomly around the aircraft to go ahead and create our effect, and then overcoat everything else with our desert yellow. Once that is all done, we can just pull up those smoke rings, and we hopefully should have exactly what we want and just have a bunch of smoke rings all over the aircraft. That's the idea. I don't know how it's going to work out necessarily. I've never tried this before, so, well, fingers crossed, this should come out at least decent looking, right? I'm not expecting a miracle here. Now, honestly, using masks like this is a little bit more complicated than using like some decals, which I could have also used, but this way I don't have to buy anything. I already have everything I need. I can just create with what I have and just roll the dice and see what happens. Now, in order to start prepping for our painting, we need to go ahead and mask off a couple of areas, like for example, the wheelbase and the inside of our radiator. Those have to all be protected because I'm going to be overlaying a bunch of different colors here, and I don't want to ruin all of my hard work. So we're going to take some paper towel. We're going to go ahead and just kind of fit that down into the opening. And once I have it more or less in there, we can take a little bit of water and just kind of soak the very tips of it, which should help to conform it to that shape. Then we can tuck it under and around different lips and whatnot, and we'll get this thing all squared away. I have to be kind of careful though, because I don't want to push too hard and end up skewing or hurting one of my wires or something on the inside. But I think if I take it real slow here, we should be able to mask it up and we'll be ready to paint. So let's go ahead and jump into our first time lapse, and I want to focus on painting up the undersurface of the aircraft using our RLM 78 pale blue. Once that is done and once that is dry, then we can go ahead and come in with some masking, and we'll mask off the leading edges and the rear tail edges as well. So we can come in with our RLM 80 and overcoat the entire top of the aircraft. Once that is done and dried, we should be in good position to go ahead and start applying our smoke ring masks. So fingers crossed, this works out. But let's jump on in there, guys. We have a lot of work to do. Let's get this party started. All right, everybody, we are back. And as you can see, the entire top of the aircraft is painted in RLM 80. That means we have our smoke ring pattern ready to go. We're going to start applying some of these masks, and we're going to see how they go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use some of my references and some pictures I've got in my 2 books, and we're going to figure out how to best place these. Now, this is not going to be a perfect science, and again, more probably leaning towards artistic license than anything else. So we're going to go ahead and just apply our masks. We're going to attempt to go ahead and get as cool of an artistic look as possible. And then I'm going to come in with some white and kind of marble coat around the different areas, and then we can apply our RLM 79 desert yellow. I don't know how this is going to work, guys. I'm just going to stick it out. We're going to see what we can do, and I bet you we're going to learn some stuff along the way. So let's get back into that time lapse. Let's finish off these masks, and let's get to some desert yellow. Alright guys, well we are back, and as you can see we've got everything painted, and we're going to start pulling up our masks. And already I've only got 2 up here, and it looks kind of cool. I like the effect. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. So it is what it is, but I think these are going to be fine. So let's go ahead and jump back into a time lapse, and let's remove the rest of the smoke ring masks. And then let's come in and let's go ahead and start painting up the landing gears and getting some of the small parts ready to go. Because I think after this stage, there's not really that much left to do. Once this is all unmasked, we'll get a good idea of if this turned out, if this actually worked. And aside from a couple of little nitpicks I've got, we'll see how it turns out. So let's get back into it, guys. We have a lot more to do. Let's go ahead and keep our fingers crossed that these come off clean. And well, we have ourselves a nice looking MC205. All right, everybody. Well, we are back, and I've removed all of our smoke ring masks, and I went ahead and took the liberty of painting on that white band around the fuselage, and I'm actually pretty happy with how this has turned out. It's not perfect by any means, but I like the effect. I'm pretty happy with it. So now we're going to rotate into the rest of the kit, and we're going to put on the last little bits and pieces here of the fidgety parts so we can eventually overcoat this with future and prepare for next episode where I hope to decal, weather, and finish off this awesome little model. And as you can see here, we're going to work on the landing gears and try to get these straightened out. The landing gears themselves are not that complicated to put together. However, we do have a lot of added material that we've put into that center wheel bay area, like wires and supports and whatnot. And in order to go ahead and fit these struts down into where they're supposed to go, we have to kind of manipulate them under and around a bunch of our own wires, then of course the kit parts as well. However, though, once you get the landing gears glued in and you get the supports attached, everything seems to line up decently. And that rear support does act as a nice guide to keep those landing gears perpendicular and plugged into the right area. But everything in there is so tight and compact. You can barely move anything around anywhere without bumping into 15 other things. Now, once the glue sets up, we're going to come in with a little bit of super glue, and we're just going to go ahead and secure those connections. Just a drop of super glue. We don't need a lot here, just a little bit to kind of shore up that connection point, and then we can go ahead and put her on her legs and move on from there. We can drop some accelerator on there to speed up the process, but more or less just a little bit of super glue. We are good to go. We can move on to the next section, which will be the center doors. And the doors themselves look to be a fairly simple affair as well. We have one actuator that plugs into the back of the landing gear bay. The other end plugs into the top rear portion of the inner bay door, and that's pretty much it. Nothing too fancy here. And this is again why I decided not to put more wires in there, because if I had, it would have completely obscured this particular connection point, and I wouldn't have been able to install the center portion of these landing gear bay doors. And then once that is all set, we can just go ahead and grab the outer door and plug it right into its opening. Now, there aren't any separate locating tabs. The entire bottom of the door is basically one huge locating tab, so you can drop that right into its designated location. I've already added a little bit of Tamiya extra thin, and once that is in there, I can grab our actuator, place it at the locating tab, and then just hook the two together. Once we get that into place, a little bit of glue should shore it up if you're worried about it, maybe a little bit of super glue, but I think it's okay just with our Tamiya extra thin. And with that being said, guys, let's jump back into the time lapse. We still have to install our pitot tube, the aerial, and our prop. We have to get all that glued into place and painted, even though the prop's already painted, the aerial and the pitot tube are not. And then we can go ahead and apply a nice top coat of future. That should get us ready for decaling on the next episode. So let's jump back in there. Last time lapse of the day. Let's see what we can do. Let's get this bird ready for decals. right, everybody, so we are back, and yeah, that went really well. Took a bit of time though with the masking and the painting and all of that, but we have everything gloss coated, and as you can see here, looks pretty sharp, and we are ready for decals on the next episode. We've got our propeller on, we've got our aerials on, our pitot tube is on, all our landing gears are glued into place, all our doors are ready to go. And as you can see, the gloss is pretty glossy, so that should make decal application a breeze. With regards to the smoke rings, they're not perfect. They're a bit more of a hard-edged when they actually should be a bit more feathered. I don't think this would have been any better if I'd gotten, say, the decals or something like that. They would have been the exact same shape, or at least roughly close to it. So I think we are good to go, and I got a chance to go ahead and paint them on, and I think it looks pretty cool. I had fun doing it, and it looks like what I've got in my pictures. But a big thank you to Joe for giving me some measurements, as well as my subscribers for giving me some additional ideas. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. But that is it. We are done for today. The 205 is looking pretty glossy, and we're going to let it cure for a good while, and then we're going to jump back in and we're going to start doing some decals. And eventually, once that is done, overcoat it with gloss, seal them in, and do a little bit of weathering. And that's going to be a little tricky as well. We'll do some research off camera and finish off the aircraft next episode. So until then, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to go on by Joe's channel, check out his 205. It's pretty cool. He's got a very difficult paint job, but I think he pulled it off beautifully. I will see you back here for another episode of our MC205 here on Ben Builds with Joe. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.